finding your way back to yourself. There is a moment when you realize you have been living beside yourself, not in a dramatic way, not all at once, just slowly. You answer to your name. You do the things you are supposed to do. You keep going, but somewhere inside, you are no longer fully there, and maybe no one else can see it. That is the strange part. You can look fine to everyone else and still feel like a stranger to your own life. There comes a point when a woman begins to notice it. She hears her own laughter, and it sounds a little far away. She makes choices and does not fully recognize the hand making them. She says yes when everything in her is whispering no. She becomes easy to manage, easy to read, easy to overlook. And one day, very quietly, she asks herself the question she has been avoiding for a long time. How did I disappear so gently? That is where this story begins. Not with blame, not with drama, with the soft and painful truth that a woman can lose herself without even realizing she has left. It rarely begins with one terrible moment. Most of the time, it begins with small adjustments. A little silence here, a little self-editing there, a little shrinking, a little smoothing of the edges, a little becoming easier to live with. You learn which version of yourself brings less resistance. You learn which opinions keep the peace. You learn how to soften your voice before it becomes inconvenient. And because the changes are small, you do not call it loss. You call it maturity. You call it love. You call it understanding. You call it being reasonable. But your body knows. Your body always knows. It knows when you are holding back your real answer. It knows when you have started saying what is safe instead of what is true. It knows when you have been translating yourself for someone else's comfort. And over time, that translation becomes a prison. You stop speaking from the place inside you that used to feel certain. You start checking your own words before they leave your mouth. You ask yourself how things will sound, how they will land, how they might be received. That is how a woman begins to vanish while still standing in the same room. Not by leaving, by staying too long in places where she has to abandon herself in order to remain loved. And this is where the grief begins. Because there is a special kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people and still not feeling like yourself. You can have conversations. You can answer messages. You can sit at the table. You can smile at the right moments. And still, inside, there is a quiet ache, a sense that something essential has gone missing. Not your responsibilities, not your life. You, the real you, the one who used to have instincts, the one who used to trust her own feelings, the one who did not need permission to know what hurt. And maybe that is the first wound of all. Not that life became difficult, but that you became unfamiliar to yourself. A woman does not usually notice the moment her voice becomes smaller. She notices the consequences. She notices that she no longer speaks quickly when she is excited. She notices that she hesitates before she answers. She notices that she has started measuring every sentence before she offers it. This is what happens when too many of your truths are met with discomfort, or dismissal, or silence, or correction, or the look that tells you your feelings are too much. So you adapt. You become thoughtful, careful, controlled. At first, this feels like wisdom, but slowly, it starts to feel like absence. You stop saying the thing that matters most because it feels easier to stay safe than to be seen. You stop bringing up what hurt you because you already know how the conversation will go. You stop asking for what you need because asking has begun to feel like exposure. And when a woman lives like this for long enough, she does not just lose her voice. She loses access to her own inner weather. She stops noticing the first small tightening in her chest. She stops trusting the tension in her stomach. She stops listening to the part of her that becomes restless before she becomes resentful. She becomes very good at overriding herself. And that is a dangerous kind of skill, because once you are used to overriding yourself, it becomes harder to hear yourself at all. You can enter a room and immediately scan for everyone else's mood. You can sense tension before it is spoken. You can adapt to the emotional climate of everyone around you, but your own needs become faint. Your own preferences become blurry. Your own desires become background noise. This is not because you are weak. It is because you have been practicing disappearance. And if nobody names it for what it is, you may begin to think this is simply who you are now, the quiet one, the agreeable one, the one who does not ask for much, the one who understands everyone else, the one who can hold everything together. But underneath that identity, there is often a woman who is tired of being useful, tired of being calm, tired of being easy, tired of being the version of herself that never causes trouble. That woman is still there. She has not left. She has only gone underground. It often happens in an ordinary moment, not in a crisis, not in a collapse, just in a small, almost invisible flash of clarity. You hear a question and realize you no longer know what you want. You are asked what music you like, and your mind goes blank. You are given space to choose, and suddenly choice feels unfamiliar. That is when it hits you. You have been living from habit, not from self, from reaction, not from reflection, from survival, not from truth. And the shock of it can be almost unbearable, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You start noticing how often you abandon your own first instinct. You start hearing the difference between your real answer and your rehearsed answer. You start recognizing how quickly you explain yourself when no explanation is needed. And then the deeper pain arrives. Not just that you lost yourself, but that you had to. That somewhere along the way, it felt necessary to become less visible, less difficult, less direct, less you. That kind of realization can bring grief, and grief is not always elegant. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion. Sometimes it looks like numbness. Sometimes it looks like anger that has nowhere to go. Sometimes it looks like staring at your own reflection and not feeling fully inhabited by the face looking back. That is not vanity. That is disconnection. And disconnection is one of the loneliest places a woman can live. Because when you are disconnected from yourself, every other relationship becomes more confusing. You start reaching outward for confirmation because your own center feels unreliable. You want someone else to tell you what is true because you have stopped trusting your own pulse. But the answer you are looking for was never supposed to live outside you. You were never meant to outsource your knowing forever. At some point, the way back begins with a quiet refusal. A refusal to keep calling emptiness peace. A refusal to keep calling self-erasure love. A refusal to keep calling numbness strength. That refusal may not feel powerful at first. It may feel like fear. It may feel like guilt. It may feel like standing in a doorway with your hand on the frame and your heart racing. But that is often how return begins. Not with confidence, with honesty. There is a lie women are taught to believe, that the parts of themselves they gave away were not that important. A little voice, a little rest, a little preference, a little time, a little joy, a little certainty. But those pieces are not small. They are the architecture of a self. When enough of them are gone, you do not just feel tired. You feel hollow. You feel muted. You feel as though life is happening to you from a distance. And yet the world often praises this condition. It praises the woman who asks for less, the woman who is always understanding, the woman who makes it easy, the woman who adapts, the woman who never needs too much. But the cost of being easy for everyone else is often hardness inside yourself. You become patient with other people's pain and impatient with your own. You notice everyone else's wounds and ignore the slow bruising in your own chest. You become fluent in other people's needs while starving your own life of attention. And that is how a woman can be admired while quietly disappearing. So the work of coming back is not cosmetic. It is not about becoming more productive. It is not about looking healed. It is about remembering what was taken from your attention for so long that you began to call it normal. Your appetite, your instincts, your curiosity, your boundaries, your sense of humor, your ability to rest without guilt, your ability to say no without writing a speech around it, your ability to enter a room and not immediately measure yourself against everyone in it. These are not extras. These are signs that you are home in yourself. And when they go missing, the loss is not shallow. It is structural. So when you begin to return, do not minimize what you are reclaiming. You are not just becoming calmer. You are becoming whole. Returning to yourself does not happen in one beautiful moment. It happens in fragments, in pauses, in tiny acts of loyalty. It happens when you notice your body tense and do not dismiss it. It happens when you feel a no rise in you and let it stay. It happens when you stop explaining a feeling that does not need a defense. It happens when you choose rest without earning it first. It happens when you let your own experience be real before anyone else agrees with it. That is the quiet work, not a grand transformation, a steady remembering. You begin to ask yourself gentler questions. What feels heavy? What feels true? What feels forced? What feels like relief? What feels like me? And over time, those questions become a path. You start to notice that your real self was never dramatic. She was simply suppressed. She was never gone. She was waiting beneath all the coping. You may find her in small things first, in the way you breathe when nobody is asking anything from you, in the way your shoulders lower when you are alone, in the way something soft stirs in you when you stop performing being fine. That is her, the woman underneath the performance, the woman beneath the over-functioning, the woman beneath the careful smile. She does not return all at once. She returns when you make room for truth again. And truth may feel unfamiliar at first. It may feel almost rude, almost selfish, almost dangerous. But that is only because self-betrayal has been dressed up as virtue for so long. The return is often quiet. You do not announce it. You do not explain it. You simply begin to live differently. You stop asking other people to author your reality. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy. You stop abandoning yourself just to keep a connection alive. And little by little, the distance between you and yourself begins to close. This is how a woman comes back, not as someone new, as someone remembered. She does not become perfect. She does not become untouched. She does not erase what happened, but she stops living as if her own life belongs to everyone except her. And one day, without fanfare, she sits still long enough to feel it, that small, steady pulse of recognition, the one that says, I am here, I am still here, I have been here all along. That is where healing begins, not in the performance of strength, in the return of self-trust, in the decision to stop leaving yourself behind. And maybe that is the quietest miracle of all. to come home to the woman you were never meant to lose. You were not lost forever. You were only waiting to be found by yourself.